One of the first things that is becoming clearer to me as I grow old, as I stick to my practice and let the years of experience accumulate, um, has been this idea that the world we live in, the world that we experience, exists in our own mind, that each one of us carries around our own copy of the world. From our collection of things that we've chosen to remember, and we've let these things that we've chosen to remember define our present moment, and it sort of builds on itself, sort of rolls into itself. Today I was reading the Dhammapada, the Path of Truth, according to the Buddha, and he says, we are what we think. Now, Swami Vivekananda has reiterated that. The Upanishads, of course, point to that, and it's an old spiritual truth. We are what we think. It's a simple thing when you contemplate it, and the way that it really hit home for me one time is embarrassingly simple. It was a matter of 2 days back to back in San Francisco back in the early 2000s. I was a new monk. And so my mind was in a very different place back then. And I would take an afternoon walk every day. And one of the places I would walk was along Union Street in San Francisco. And if you've been there, you know that that's kind of the hoity-toity fancy shopping district, or one of them. Not the hoitiest, but certainly a very nice one. And I remember walking there one day and seemed to sense that people were looking at me or watching me. And at the time I had sort of an egotistic approach or an egotistic response to my thinking about it. I thought, oh, I must look pretty good today. And I kind of complimented myself and felt good about myself in that perspective, because that's how I interpreted what I imagined I was seeing. It was funny because the very next day, I woke up and I had one of these non-existent little blemishes on my face that I tried to fix, and through trying to fix it, it became quite hideous. It bled and then scabbed over, and it was quite the thing. Well, that afternoon, without thinking about any of this stuff, this all was put together later on. I was walking down Union Street again and again, had this sense that some people were sort of noticing me or looking at me, and immediately I was feeling insecure, like, oh my God, is it bleeding? Is the wound looking hideous and getting attention? And it struck me not long after that, as I continued to walk, that here I had the exact same experience 2 days in a row. And in one of them, I interpreted it as a big plus and built my ego on that and felt great. And then the same experience the next day, I built it on insecurity and felt, a diminishment of my idea of self. And I learned a great lesson from that. In such a small example, I learned a really good lesson that your disposition, your attachments, the things that you're holding in your mind at the moment, significantly color what you're experiencing at the moment. He says, we are what we think. All that we are arises with our thoughts. With our thoughts, we make the world. Speak or act in an impure mind, and trouble will follow you, as the wheel follows the ox that draws the cart. That impurity, that sense of me and mine. That's what makes us impure. That's what doesn't allow us to experience the divine in all things. We start to get small. We start to get particular about what we like and don't like, what we need and what we don't need, what's beneficial to us, what's not. And we close off our knowledge of oneness, close off our knowledge of the interconnectedness of all things that we're experiencing. And that's what blinds us. That's what disallows us from experiencing the divine. He goes on, we are what we think. All that we are arises with our thoughts. With our thoughts we make the world. That's his refrain. Speak or act with a pure mind, and happiness will follow you as your shadow, unshakable. I like that idea of happiness following unshakable like a shadow. You know, a shadow falls over whatever the terrain is. Happiness follows you in a steady way. I've seen that. I've had a lot of struggles in my life with severe depression, and having come to a place in my life where I can say that is behind me, having spent many years actually going through cognitive behavioral therapy, which is really just spiritual practice formalized in a medical journal. But finding those thoughts that are not accurate, those assumptions that you make that are not accurate, that then color what you're hearing and experiencing, to build on that error. You know, that a single dam in a river can start with just one branch dragging on the top of the water and catching a pine needle, and then catching a leaf, and then after the leaf catching a piece of fiber, you know, and a whole dam can form that way. And that's what we call personality. That's what we call what we are. Look at how he abused me and beat me, how he threw me down and robbed me. Live with such thoughts, and you live in hate. Yes, if that me and mine, how's everybody treating me? How's everybody disadvantaging me? Or, you know, how am I being served by the world? Hatred will follow. That comes from selfishness. You don't have to look far in the world or think hard to see that it's true. He starts the refrain again. Look how he abused me and beat me, how he threw me down and robbed me. Abandon such thoughts and live in love. You see, this is how we prevent that dam from building, how we prevent that blinder from building, that disallows our vision of the divine. In this world, hate never dispelled hate. You know, so if you're browsing your Reddit in the morning and you're noticing the numerous postings of how silly people are, how stupid they are, how arrogant they are, and that's what you collect from that experience, that hate will build and that interpretation will build, and it can ruin a day. A half hour on Reddit looking for the wrong things with that lens of me and mine can ruin a whole day. Go through and find the beautiful things. Focus on the beautiful things. Remember the beautiful things. And it can make a character. It can build you up inside to experience love, to experience the world as love. In this world, hate never dispelled hate. Only love dispels hate. That is the law, ancient and inexhaustible. That's the thing about all these laws, is that they're not made up. You know, I hear so often about religion being there to control people. Certainly it has been used that way by many in the world, but again, that's a perspective. And if you hold that as an axiom and build on it, that's going to become your reality. But if you look at all of the great saints and all of the amount of service and love and compassion that they practiced, you come to realize that there's something far deeper than the abuse of these ideals, something far deeper than the errors of the disciples of these great teachers. You'll find the truth of these things, and you'll find a gold mine. You'll find a life worth living. So be aware. Be aware of these things. Be cautious with what you put into your mind. Be cautious with the things that you pay attention to and choose to remember. Be cautious about what you emphasize in your experiences of a day, because tomorrow will reflect them back to you.